I'm Kailani, and this is the Kai Report, where I uncover the truths about music and music education. Today we're hanging out with Aaron Jackson. He's one of our stage one piano professors here at Oclef, and feel free to give us an intro, Aaron.
Hey, my name's Aaron. I'm an S1 professor and I teach piano full time.
Awesome. Okay, so my first question for you is, so did you always plan on going into music?
Yes, so music was always the end goal career wise, and even just for hobbies. I remember growing up always listening to music in the car, singing to whatever song was online or on the radio. It was just a lot of fun. Music was always there for me.
Oh, that's so sweet. What was your journey like with that?
Yeah, so originally from Pennsylvania up north. So, like I said, I started off just singing in the car in the back seat. But I didn't really find piano until middle school when I moved down south to North Carolina. That's when I officially. My twin brother actually played piano first. He tried out the class. He didn't like it at all. But I was like, let me try it. So I tried it and I fell in love, and the rest is history, honestly.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you went to college for music.
Yeah. So I went to University of North Carolina at Greensboro, and I studied piano performance for pretty much all 4 years. But my last semester I actually changed to a BA in music, so it was still piano concentration, but I just knew there was more to music than just piano. So performance was a lot of fun, but
Mhm.
BA just had wider possibilities.
Oh, okay. So like beyond the scope of piano, I know, well, now you're in music education. So did you have any plans for going into education, or was it always going to be music education, or what was the situation?
Yeah, good question. So honestly, education was not the end goal whatsoever. I know usually when you go into any teaching field, you need a certification. I didn't go to school for education, so I had to take classes while I was teaching K12 for a little bit. But it was very interesting because as soon as I was offered a position to teach, I just dove in. I did it. I wanted something that was very stable. So it wasn't hard for me at all. It came very natural to me. So I'm good at it. People tell me that. I'm just not a huge fan of it. So I'm still trying to get used to being patient and just, yeah.
So given that question, what was your teaching experience like before you joined Oclef? Was it bad? Was it good?
Yeah, so I mean, so it was good overall, but there's just a mix. So the number one thing that kind of bugged me was it wasn't as stable. So after college, I was a private piano instructor where I would go from house to house. This was way before COVID. So I would go from house to house and I would, instruct students one on one. It was a lot of fun. So like Oclef, we did that, but it was once a week. It was a good 45 minutes to an hour, and we got a lot of stuff done. But at the same time, we did not. So on top of just not getting a lot done because you see them once a week, you don't know what they do the other 6 7 days. Apart from that, the money was really good, but it wasn't stable. You kind of just had to find whatever was around. So that's when I ended up teaching K12. I was offered a position for elementary music. It was a lot of fun, but at the same time I knew I was still like not getting what I wanted. I was still in music full time, so I was very blessed and happy for that to happen, but I was still missing something. I wasn't sure what that was just yet.
Yeah. And then, so can we talk a little bit about the K through 12 system? So I know just just from my experience, so I know it's basically like the main schooling system. You have like your public schools, private schools, all that. But can you explain it a little bit, like from your perspective?
Yeah, so K12, just to like sum it up in a T, I guess there's three main sectors. So there's public schools where you're, fully funded by the state. Then charter school, I was there for a little bit. That was a mixture of both. And then private schools, not with the state at all. It's mainly through donations and just the tuition of the students. I actually taught public schools for about 2 years, and then I actually transferred to a charter school, and I was there for about half a semester to a year, and it was fun. But yeah, that's kind of the difference between K12, public, charter, and private.
So as a teacher, can you kind of like sum up the experience maybe for you or from the perspective of like other teachers that you knew?
Yeah, let me see. It's some of the experience. So it's a lot. To really sum it up in 2 words or 3 words, it's a lot. It is. So one thing that I feel like people really look into when they find a career, especially in teaching, they just see the title. You're a teacher or you're a lawyer or a constructor, whatever it may be. But they don't realize all the intricate details that go into it with the daily tasks and what else you have to do. So when I went in, and other teachers that I've talked to and that I've heard stories from, when you go in teaching, you want to do just that. but you may have to cover other teachers if they don't come in. You're going to have to do a lot of covering for other people. And then there's more than just teaching. You have to do your lesson plans, of course. There's a lot of disciplining as well because the structure just needs a lot of reshaping. So it's just a lot, honestly.
So, with that experience in mind, but like pre Oclef, what would have been your ideal teaching situation?
Definitely, yeah. So I always told myself this. It's really funny that you asked because I would always tell myself classes need to be a lot smaller than what they are.
Mhm.
I remember teaching elementary, I had anywhere from 18 to 25 up students in one class.
Oh my goodness.
So it was a lot, and I don't even know if it was regulation, honestly. But yeah, because I think, what was it? Maybe kindergarten needed at least an assistant after maybe 15, 12 to 15 kids needed someone else. I was in there by myself. So every class was a good hour long. And it's just you and the kids, you're teaching them music or whatever your subject or craft is. So it was a lot of fun, but imagine a bunch of little kids just running around. Like you can't focus on one. So I would always tell myself, we need smaller classes. Um, I would say anywhere for at least like a group of five, no more than 5 or 6 students in a class. That way you can focus on every single one of them the way they need to be focused on. That way, that quality instruction is there, and you can really, see their growth. Because with a larger class, it was nearly impossible to really see where their growth was if you didn't give them a test or some kind of project.
And then, with that in mind, how do you think that affected like the students? So, like you said, classroom sizes are huge. There's a lot of understaffing. There's not a lot of resources for everyone. It's kind of like you have to fend for yourself.
Yeah,
So,
really.
how do you think the students at the time were impacted? Do you think it's kind of a good system now, or?
So that's the thing. So I want to say it's like an exponential curve, but it's the opposite direction, and that's not good. So your curve is like this, but I feel like it's starting up here, and it's kind of at the top, but it's starting to go down very quickly.
Yeah, definitely.
So I do think that they were impacted positively through like teaching and administration, but I'm still trying to pinpoint where everything went wrong because I'm starting to see the decline, and it's not a good one. I think it's happening pretty quickly, and COVID just kind of sped that up, honestly.
I know, like, because I was still in high school when COVID started.
Mm.
Because of the transition, they've made a lot of realizations in terms of just, how are we going to adapt? How are we going to change everything that we had and make it better for students? And it kind of revealed a lot just about how sometimes the system is just super disorganized, And I know I had talked to a couple of teachers at the time, and they were saying that, there were so many limitations as a teacher, even in person, and
Yeah.
that during COVID, it only just got worse because we weren't actually physically in a classroom. So I bring that up mainly because were there any major limitations before COVID that you had experienced in K through 12?
The first one was just the fact that you couldn't really, how do I say it, focus on the students. Like I mentioned, the quality instruction. So it was irritating just to know that the quality wasn't there. Like the teachers could, teach very well, but it's quality in the sense that the students weren't there as much as they should have been, like mentally.
Mhm.
And it was music too. Like I directed band and chorus. You'd think they'd want to stay there, and a lot of them did, but core classes, I guess, really drained them. So when they go to like PE and art and music, things like that, it's like an escape zone for them. It's like, in a sense it is, but we still need to get stuff done, yo. Come on. And then, so apart from the instruction, the limitation was for teachers and administration. We really couldn't focus on ourselves, like outside of work. The work-life balance was terrible. Even when you were home, you were still like at school mentally, and that wasn't good. Because I'd like to think that when people join any career field, they want to, to develop themselves as a human, as an individual, not just, get a paycheck doing the same thing. They want to progress. They want to move up in the ranks. So the fact that they couldn't really take time to sit down after work and say, how can I improve my teaching style? Or what can I do to, just help me develop as a person? Because they were so focused on, just making sure that their class was ran the way it should have been.
I see.
So limitations were quality instruction, and then just work-life balance was very terrible.
I know, like, growing up in school, a lot of teachers would just be like, "Yeah, my life is school, my life is school." But, like, hearing that and actually absorbing that is, like,
Yeah,
it's eye-opening. It's really, it's unsettling, to say the least. Very problematic.
definitely.
So, with all of these kind of problems that we're seeing in the K through 12 system, what would you ultimately change?
Yeah, definitely. So I've actually been coming up with different models to like put into play and see how I could actually put this into practice, not just talk about it. So I'm glad this is a question was asked. Um, One thing I can think of, there's a lot, but I guess just one. I'm developing a model known as ETS. I didn't really talk to anyone about it. This is my first time telling you, so it's kind of cool. So it's called Everything Shorter or Everything Smaller. It's an acronym. Like I mentioned before, classrooms, the class size capacity needs to be a lot smaller, so quality instruction can be, present. Also, I feel like the school days should even be shorter because I
Mhm.
think to myself, kids are in school for 8, maybe sometimes 9 hours a day if they have extracurricular. And it's like, how many minutes do you think are actually spent on quality instruction, them actually learning something?
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah, so everything shorter or smaller is based on the classroom sizes and the school day in general. But then even class time should be shorter as well. I know we're in class for about an hour long, and it's like, okay. But
Mhm.
if you think about it, I feel like for a whole hour, you can get so much done. Like with Oclef, it's one on one or like a small Kaizen musicality, it's just a small class. And that's an hour as well, but there's less students to really focus on.
Mhm.
So everything shorter is really just trying to condense everything and really get to that quality instruction. So that's one thing I would do.
With the everything shorter model, this is just like a question for myself so I understand it a little bit more. So how like accessible would it be, like, in the big like dream ultimate picture? Would it
Hmm.
be like implemented in like all the K through 12 systems? Would it be something that you start off like maybe in like a small like preschool setting or something and then watch it develop over time, or how would that kind of work out?
Really good question. So I would honestly start with high school. I feel like
Hmm.
high school is really the time to really focus on that, not just take all these classes. There's a concept known as a nerd ideas, and I'm not sure if you're aware of what that is, but a nerd idea is essentially you're retaining information in schools that have nothing to do with anything. Like they're just random facts that we don't need.
Hmm.
So that's filling up our minds, and it's like that we could be honestly filling up our minds with things that are more essential to school or more essential to life, like success and careers. There's not a lot of classes out there for finance and really focusing on bills and things like that. So these are nerd ideas need to be honestly minimized like greatly. So I would start with high school because the older
Hmm.
you get, that's when that quality instruction needs to really be there. So I would definitely start with probably a charter or even a private school, and then I would watch that branch out and watch that succeed, and then we go from there.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Like I said, I was in high school not too long ago, so it's interesting thinking about this.
Mhm.
Even now that I'm seeing the schools function as we kind of emerge a little bit out of COVID, but not so much, it's still pretty much exactly the same. There's not
Yeah.
really a solution yet. So I think your model is really profound.
Thank you.
Yeah. As a student, I would have admired it a lot.
Yeah, I think that's really good that you're saying that because I like change.
Yeah.
I just don't like the idea of just working for something that's not, doing just that, which is why I left.
So, upon finding Oclef, I know you joined during COVID, but were you still teaching K through 12 at that point?
Yeah, I was still teaching high school. Yep.
Oh, okay, awesome. And then, so next question: how did you find Oclef?
Yeah, so honestly, I was still kind of just like applying places because I'm like high school. So I was in elementary for 2 years, like I said, and it was just draining. There's a lot. So I went to high school. It's like, you know what? I'll just settle for high school.
Mhm.
Um, because the students are older. I'm thinking, you know what? I can do this. They're older kids. We just rehearse music all day. There's not so much, ABC 1 2 3, but it's more of, that articulation and so much more detail in music. I can arrange a piece and we can really dive deeper into it and win awards and travel and the whole thing. So I was really excited for that. Um, but then when I got to high school, I'm like, oh my goodness, they're just bigger kids. Like I can't, they're not ready. Like, so I thought about college too. And I'm like, I mean, I know they'll take it very seriously, but then that's more going to school, getting a master's, a PhD, and I was going to get a master's, but now I'm just like, honestly, maybe education is just not for me in a sense of the public school setting. So then I was looking around for a job that was remote because that was one thing that I personally wanted. I didn't like having to go to a place like I already felt like my time was wasted. All of these lesson plans just falling because students don't want to be around. So like on top of that, I have to drive to a place too. I'm going to drive here just to fail. I don't want to do that. So I was looking at music jobs. I was so like, it was so basic. I typed in like remote music. Like I was just done. I didn't even care what it was. I needed something that was remote and something that was just because I love music. So anything music. As soon as I got to, looking online, I found Oclef. It was a mixture of both. Like I was still teaching. I was like, okay, another teaching job. I'm like, let's hope it's different. But then after reading the articles and just, learning that it was 15 minutes, I was like, whoa, this is pretty cool. You have to do quality instruction. It's only 15 minutes. The kid has to stay focused because class is over by the time they start losing their train of thought.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that students or anyone can really only focus for so long. So it was perfect. And it was every day, which was really cool.
Yeah.
So the fact that it was one-on-one was very crucial, and the fact that it was so short was very crucial as well. So yeah, that's honestly how I found Oclef in a T.
So kind of going a little bit more in depth about your thoughts on Oclef. So it's very different from the traditional form of teaching. How functional did you see that being?
Yeah. So I think it was very cutting edge, knowing that the our company was only open for about 5 years and they were doing so well. I had someone ask me, like, "Oh, do you think it's gonna be successful?" I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, they've been online before COVID, so it's not because of COVID. I know that a lot of companies are starting because of COVID, but the fact that you were before COVID, or that we were before COVID, just shows that it is successful. It is working.
Mm-hmm.
It was what I was looking for. Like I mentioned, we're in school all day, but how many minutes throughout that day are we really getting stuff done? So I didn't think it'd be as short as 15 minutes, but for music, that happens to work. So I'm like, let's do that. I can't imagine teachers driving to a job, staying there for an hour teaching kids and then they just leave. So that's where the remote portion comes in. There's a lot that goes into just teaching here. But for the most part, that quality instruction was what I was really looking for. So I'm glad I found Oclef.
Definitely. And then, so teaching overall, has that changed for you since you started? So have you kind of, maybe adopted a new mindset or thought about it a little bit differently?
Yeah, I'm only laughing just a little bit because when I first started teaching, I was going over time. Like it was 15 minutes, and I looked at the time like, oh my goodness, we're done, or I was a minute over because I know how to fill up an hour lesson. You just know what to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was getting to the group of things, one lesson, I was just talking his head off, one of my students, and I was like, he needs to play. And he played, but then it's only maybe 5 minutes of the 10. And I was like, I was just going on. And I hope he understood because I'm used to teaching high school students, so they're older. Little kids got to break it down a little bit more. So I had to bring that back out when I was with elementary. So it was a lot of fun, but I definitely had to condense my lessons because I don't have, 30, 45 or an hour to talk. It's only 15. So it's more of they play. We can digress for a little bit just to get to know who they are. I give them some feedback, they play some more, and then we're done. So it took some adjusting mentally at first, but I'm good now.
I'm glad. Yeah. And then as for the students, so, how have they been benefiting on your end? Any changes, any comparisons with the students that you had encountered before?
Yeah, so it's really cool. I like how we only have 15 minutes a day, but they still find time to ask me questions. And
Yeah.
the biggest thing I love with teaching is you get to see their growth going through, the beginner book and level 1, level 2. You get to see that every single day. So to see them not being able to find middle C to them now being able to play a quick little sonata or something, like a whole page of music, is just, I love seeing the growth. I love seeing progress in people. So that's the number one thing for why I'm here.
Oh, that's adorable. Yeah, I have to agree. You have to figure out how to streamline everything and, keep everything concise, but in a way that they still understand you and they can still process it while giving them the leeway to just be who they are because they're just kids.
Yeah. So it was definitely a lot of adjusting, but I do like the idea of teaching only because for me, I teach because it sparks creation. I teach them something, they know how to take that themselves and they can create something based off what I taught them. I teach only really just to see them spark that creation. I really want them to take things to the next level.
A lot of people do say that teaching is a selfless job, but then in that sense, it's like, where's the time for you? You know, you still need to have something that's not only fulfilling to a child, but something that gives you some sort of gratification.
Hmm.
And knowing that, so at Oclef, besides just teaching, are there any like opportunities that you've at least had the chance to explore your own growth and spark your own creation?
Yeah. So even before coming, I had like a little YouTube channel. I post little instrumentals, lo-fi type things, and it's really cool. So I incorporated that into Oclef. So it's really, I really like Oclef because it's not just about doing the basics for other people. Here, the human development company, we're also developing ourselves as workers here. So we get to dive deeper into what we want to do. And since I like producing and arranging music, I get to do that. So there's a project that I'm working on right now with a couple of other people in the Oclef, and it's really cool because we get to really dive into our compositional aspects of music. So apart from teaching, I produce and I arrange here too. But even apart from that, I'm also diving into things I didn't think I would dive into. Because when I first got hired, I thought it was honestly just, it was like 70% teaching and then 30% creative projects. So you get to compose and stuff. And I was like, okay, cool, I'm done. But when I got here, there was so much, like they were throwing things at me. Oh, try this, try that. I'm like, whoa, 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 slow down. I'm sure trying to figure stuff out. I conduct research for product development. So the whole podcast I'm starting soon deals with that, with the K12 restructuring. So that's a lot of fun. The podcast, so, content creation. So the list just goes on and on. There's a lot. And I love it just because I leave jobs because I get bored. Like there's just one thing you do and it's like, oh, okay, I'm kind of like, where's this going? Can I see myself doing this for 10 more years? But
Mhm.
here we're constantly developing the company. I don't think the company will ever stop growing just because there's so much we can do with it. We're like a jack of all trades, I told someone else the other day. And I love that because I'll never get bored here. And I'm doing what I love too. It's not like teaching for an hour, but I teach here. I get to compose here. If I'm tired of doing that, I get to take a break and, do sound editing like I'm doing right now as well. So there's just so much. It's really cool. The possibilities are endless, honestly.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm so glad that you feel like it's a place for you to thrive and stuff. That's really
Definitely.
refreshing to hear. And connecting that back with the whole K through 12 thing, how is Oclef specifically trying to help you fix that problem, if so? So I know you mentioned a podcast.
I think it's a good idea because I'm going to reach out to other teachers. I want to focus mainly on teachers or ex-teachers, those who used to teach, even assistant teachers and co-teachers at that point. But I was even thinking administration as well. So apart from the podcast, I know that we all teach here. We all know different people. We're all from different parts of the world. So I don't get to only stay in North Carolina and really focus on the teachers here where I went to school and college. But I get to ask other, friends and coworkers here, like, hey, who do you know who really couldn't stand the teaching side of things, or who do you know who could really help me? So apart from the podcast, there's a lot of networking that goes on around here too. You're not limited to one space. You have like almost like you have like the whole world, honestly, because everyone knows everyone. So I think it's really cool that we all know a good handful of people that we can reach out to.
That's the beauty of working remote. You get to meet people
Exactly.
from so many different places.
Hmm.
I know some of the students are doing path projects for Oclef. So basically, what path projects are, it's kind of like a personal project of their own where they get to talk a little bit about music, but it's not just music. They try to incorporate that into something else, like making a book or, you know, having a seminar for people in their area.
Yeah, so I didn't even mention this. So this is one of those things where I said the list goes on and on. So yeah, I have a pitch together, and I'm actually reaching out to schools now in a couple weeks back, where I essentially tell them, hey, we have a product. Oclef has a product, or the Oclef actually, that really focuses on the individual. We want the student to grow both academically and professionally. We essentially take all of that, we condense it into something that they want to work on, and we can use it as, or they can use it as a resume builder or for career opportunities or to network with other people. So yeah, so there are, like you said, there are books. An iOS app was made. They can create a song, things like that. They can even create a podcast. So the list is like endless of what they want to do. I guess you can kind of see it as like a senior project on steroids, kind of. I didn't have a senior project. My school, like, I went to a really good school in North Carolina. It was an art school. And the year that I was graduating, they just decided to stop it. So I don't know exactly what it is, but I know that they get to focus on something to take with them onto college and the rest of their life. I think they have like a guide, like, you have to choose one of these things. but that's why I mentioned on steroids, because we can do almost anything. Like I mentioned earlier, you get to see that growth and progress in people. So I like how it's really good for like it really boosts their self confidence in themselves and in their talents. So maybe someone who's really smart and loves math and science, and they feel like, what can I do in this world? Like everyone's like singing and doing music and writing books, and I'm just in a lab. Like, so we can advertise that. You'll be surprised what you can do with your talents. So it's definitely self fulfilling for them, we hope. And the biggest thing is just for them to, build their resume and then to have better career opportunities after school. That's the number one goal for Path Projects, at least in my eyes.
Alrighty. And then last and final question, just so I can address some of that self-fulfillment. Are you getting some of that at least now with Oclef, or, do you see yourself continuing to do all of what you're doing in like the next 10 years, like you said?
Yeah, so definitely this is a great question to end off on, just because I've been looking for a career that I can really see myself long term. I had no idea what that was. I was praying about it, and I was like, where can I be? I want to be somewhere I can really see myself. And I never thought I'd find it, to be honest. I had faith and I just kept hoping and hoping. And I honestly can see myself at Oclef for like 20 years plus. Like I can honestly see myself here for long term.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm so glad that, you're getting something out of this and you feel like you're not only giving back to others, but you're giving back to yourself as well.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot. Yeah, coming from me, it's a lot. Just if you knew who I was, just career wise, I'm like, it's a lot. But I can definitely see myself here because I don't really consider work a lot. I know that sounds kind of weird, but I always wanted a job or a career field where you can go in and honestly feel happy. So you're like quote unquote dream job. So
Yeah.
if you're watching, it's possible. It's very much possible. Just keep digging. Don't lose hope. Just keep digging. You'll find it.
Well, alrighty. So thank you so much for talking with me today, Aaron. I'm really excited to share your story with others and give people that hope that you were looking for, that you can now actually envision and imagine. And yeah, so thanks for listening, everyone. And that is a wrap for today's Kai Report.